Hey, welcome back to the Disney Plus Everyday Challenge, and today we have Brats. This is a documentary. It's really new. It's from 2024. It's an hour and 33 minutes long. And what are the Brats about? Well, it's about the Brat Pack. You know who the Brat Pack is? I know who the Brat Pack is. Why? Because I grew up in the era in which this term was coined, much to their chagrin. They generally did not like being called the Brat Pack. It seemed reductive and did just sort of, I don't know, like an insult. To be called, hey, you're 22, 23, and maybe a little bit older, but you're the young, hot, new actors on the scene, and people just consider you brats. Why? I mean, the guy who wrote that story, I forget which, I think New York, New York, some magazine, David Bloom. It's a man, it's a journalist, entertainment reporter, wrote some stories. And specifically when he interviewed Emilio Estevez, who is, if you're going to call anybody the center of the Brat Pack, it's Emilio Estevez, son of Martin Sheen. So the guy who literally did not use his father's name in order to be part of Hollywood. He could have used his Sheen name, like his brother Charlie, to get the roles. Still people knew who Emilio was, but it's still the idea that he didn't lean on that for brand recognition. So what happens when you start making movies with a bunch of people around your same age, all very attractive young people, and you start making a handful of films like The Breakfast Club, The Breakfast Club, and as others like you start making Ferris Bueller, 16 Candles, Pretty in Pink, starring a certain Andrew McCarthy right there. Molly Ringwald and John Cryer as well. So, by the way, this is a movie directed by Andrew McCarthy, based on a book that he wrote about the 80s, about his experience in the 80s as being part of the Brat Pack. And this is him basically creating an hour and a half long therapy session, meeting up with old friends, some considered acquaintances now, some that while the world believed that they were just this monolithic group of young actors who were beautiful and strangely talented despite the fact that they hadn't done a whole lot before, at least that most people knew about. He's going around and talking to these people for the first time in 30 years. He sits down with Demi Moore, right there. He sits down with Rob Lowe, right back there. Emilio Estevez. He tries to get some of them to show up, but some of them don't return his calls. Or some of them just go, you know what, I'm looking forward, not looking back. You'll have to see to understand who and why that was. And there's Emilio and there's Ali Sheedy. Ali Sheedy does show up in this. Also people who consider themselves or were considered Brat Pack adjacent, like Leah Thompson from Back to the Future. She was part of that age range. And you count others, they show a number of other young actors during that time. Michael J. Fox, also Back to the Future. You're looking at who else? Well, like John Cryer, as I showed there in Pretty in Pink. He considers himself not part of the Brat Pack, but the definition is nebulous. You could say Tom Cruise was part of it. You could say that, so many others could be a part of it. But even there's a point in this film where that question is asked: who was the Brat Pack? And you get a lot of different answers. So what happens in this hour and a half long therapy session is sussing out whether being a part of the Brat Pack was a good thing or a bad thing. By default, since it sort of painted them all with the same brush, they saw it kind of as an attack. It seemed like it was an insult that said, this is just just a bunch of pretty people, and they're not. They might be unusually talented for their youth, despite their youth, but it sort of it had the attitude, had the tone, I think, whether it was intended or not, that they're gonna come and go. And to a certain degree, some people might say, well, yeah, they're not the biggest movie stars in the world. No, they're not. Not all of them. But still, there's this other thing where I think Rob Lowe brings this up in his interview with Andrew, that it's, if anybody remembers what you did 30, 40 years later, that's kind of a good thing. Beyond music, which there's a lot of in this, a lot of 80s music, if you're part of a cultural phenomenon or an era, a pop culture era, that your name or the films you make, or both, define a generation, John Hughes films are a big part of that. And the actors in that are kind of the avatars or the inspirations for so many people in their lives. The teenagers who would hang out at the mall and go to these movies to see them over and over and over again, they saw themselves as one of those members of the Breakfast Club, which is in itself is also just a talking head therapy session between different people in the same school on detention. So if people remember you beyond being a band or a popular singer, or I don't know, just a genre of films, it's a good thing. These people will go down in history as one of the many points, one of the many elements, people can be elements, one of the many elements that define the 80s. When you have to do a documentary series of what the 80s was about, their faces show up, their names show up. So, is this really mostly self-indulgent? To a degree. It is pretty much showing us, letting us listen in as Andrew McCarthy and his friends and acquaintances, people he has not seen in 30 years but worked with on and off over the years, so long ago, as he works out, should I feel bitter? Should I feel elated? What's wrong? What's wrong with this? So it's an interesting insight into the minds of an actor who was very famous young, and is looking back on it now, and how he could blame a certain article or a certain set of words on his fortunes, or appreciate those words for his circumstances, for his fame and his life that he has now, good or bad. And you get a pretty wide array of people's attitudes. Whether they're honest or not on camera, I can't say. The interview with David Blum, yes, he does talk to David Blum, the man who coined the phrase Brat Pack, is difficult to watch. And it feels like there's some elements that, there's some questions I felt had to be asked over and over and over again so that certain people can give a more clear answer. And it still seems really difficult when Bloom gives answers on how he feels about creating such a thing. And one of the things, I know it's really weird, but I didn't realize that, I'm going to make sure this doesn't time out on me, because I've been doing this for a while. One of the things that one of the things I didn't realize about this is the fact that the Brat Pack is a spinoff of the Rat Pack. Maybe I did realize it, I just forgot. I don't know. But the Rat Pack, Sammy, Frank, Dean Martin, Joey, like those guys. The crooners back in the day, doing the Vegas Strip and the Rat Pack. They were the coolest guys in the world who had nothing to prove. Contrasting that, when you add that beat at the beginning, make it the Brat Pack, it seems like they're entitled children who are getting something they don't deserve, and that reflected poorly upon them, at least in their minds, in some of their minds. So, whether that was right or wrong, well, hopefully this will suss it out for you, and hopefully for Andrew. Hopefully for each of one of these actors. They all have better houses than I do. So if being part of the Brat Pack, I would have actually been a teenager. I would have been an actual teenager, not the 22-year-old playing a 15-year-old at a prom. Yeah, so 15, 16, I don't know. The dorky kid at the prom, that's me. You don't need an actor for that. I would have, if that would have gotten me a nice house many years later in Hollywood, LA, New York, yeah, I could live with that, I think. Go sign a few autographs. Again, it's hard to feel sorry for famous and wealthy people in general, unless they've had actual physical harm done to them. Yeah. But in this case, hey, you know what? If you can look back on it and go, there was some really great stuff that happened at that time. It's unfortunate that they weren't seen for who they actually were. And they weren't treated and given roles, I guess, or earned roles that they feel they should have gotten as a result of being this prepackaged concept. Lauren Schuler Donner, one of the producers, she who's done a number of things, including some of the John Hughes stuff over the years, and she's still doing stuff. You've seen something she's made. Trust me, she's done a lot. She's having an interview with Andrew at one point, and she's like, she thought it was a great thing. She thought it was a fantastic thing to be called the Brat Pack. Now, given that producers do like packaging, producers do prefer that things are simplified to a degree to make it easier to sell to the American public and the international market as well. So when you can say, hey, we've got one of the Brat Pack on the line to play the lead role in this film, that was an easier sell in the 80s, rather than Andrew McCarthy. Oh yeah, he was in Pretty in Pink. He was the good guy in love with Molly Shannon. He wasn't James Spader. Oh yeah, he was good. I liked him. So yeah, if you can just say, oh, we got a Brat Packer, and it tends to get movies greenlit easier when you know that somebody, even if you don't know exactly which one, executives very often just want the log line. They just want the quick and easy thing to sign papers and get movies greenlit to make money. It's the way it worked then. It's the way it works now. But hey, the one of the great things about this, or you can see it as a bad thing too, the Brat Pack, the concept of the Brat Pack, the concept of making films starring relatively same age as teenagers, making movies about teenagers. It started, you can blame them for the existence of the WB and all the shows that just filled that network over the years. It was, hey, let's make a supernatural type thing, or a vampire slayer thing, or, a Superman story, but with no costumes. You can do all those things. Because the audience was teenagers. watching shows about teenagers. Not adults where teenagers are the supporting characters, but kids watching themselves, identifying, and falling in love with those characters and those actors who play those characters. Not totally a bad thing, but you have to watch it for yourself. If you grew up in my era, you're going to probably want to watch this, even if it seems a little self-indulgent at times. I know somebody who posted about it when it came out. They were not a fan, but some of you, if you like the music, if you like the era, and you want to better understand what was going on during that whole time, this is your nostalgia kick right here. Like I said, I had no concept as to whether Brats, the Brat Pack was good or bad. I knew those actors because they were part of the Brat Pack. Because I'd seen Breakfast Club and Pretty in Pink and so many others. So, yeah. It's a documentary that, again, it's not about sharks or ancient Egypt. So I like when we get a variety of things. And it's new. So definitely give it a shot if that's your era. If you're 15, you probably don't give a crap about this. You're probably not watching my video. So I don't know what the demographics are, but I don't think they skew into teenagers that I know of. If you are, please, if your parents allow it, comment below. Let's pick tomorrow's episode. 267. This is, I think, the highest number we've gotten in a while. Last one was like 258, I think. 267. Is at the end? Close to it. Oh, wow. Okay. I'm still not rid of this cold completely. This is a docu-series for kids. This has been on my list since the beginning, I think. For the last 6 years. For 5 years, I should say. Since Disney Plus existed. And it's finally getting checked off. So hopefully it's still here. Last I checked it was. This is What Sam Sees, Nat Geo Kids. From what I understand, Sam sees animals and probably lots of fish. Not sure. What Sam Sees, Nat Geo Kids is what we're watching next on the Disney Plus Everyday Challenge. I'll see you back here tomorrow with that.